Welcome back, everybody, for this final hour of Hereticus. And our group of acolytes have at least a rough plan. I think, is there anything you'd like to roleplay the following day, specifically?
Not for me.
Okay.
Not for me.
Medea, is there anything specific you'd like to roleplay? Because there you have a day before you venture into the Middle Hive again. Is there anything specific you'd like to roleplay for Medea? I take that silence as a no, unless of course you're muted.
Yeah.
Medea?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. Okay. Akalon, is there anything specific you'd like to roleplay?
Not really. I mean, obviously, there's the whole. Yeah, as Akalon has been, as he's told basically from yesterday, he starts taking meticulous notes. He continues to do his copying. He does some target practice, but he does also pass on the request for information on the information not on from the attack on Piety of Seth, not necessarily of anyone to inquire after, but the nature of the traitors that actually attacked it. If there was any indication as to what banner they might have fought under, or what battle cries they used, whether there was an indication as to their specific unholy allegiances.
Okay. Well, I assume then you're asking Trina about this, and her response to this is, I don't know. Basically, the information she gave you when she talked to you first about it is all she has really.
Okay, and there's no easy way of finding out more detail at this point.
Well, the thing is, this message was sent via astropaths, and that you might as well throw the dice to see what kind of information comes out of an astropathic message. But she does say that she can absolutely try and investigate a bit if you want.
I do, and considering that she is a high-ranking inquisitorial agent, even if she's one we don't entirely like, although from Akalon's one interaction with her, she seems alright. So I don't trust her. He basically explains that it's specifically because of the nature of the investigation and because of his nature as a psyker, he's still receiving specific visions, possibly from the God Emperor, possibly not, but things images of concern that are connected and which connect him to some greater mystery, and he wants to make sure that there's no coincidence about anything going on around them.
Okay. Well, likable or not, she is an agent of the Inquisition, so she will absolutely investigate. She knows full well that you have your own investigation going, and she'll do some digging into what happened on the Piety of Seth.
Yes,
absolutely. She can't promise when she'll get any results, but she'll definitely look into it.
That's he is completely understanding.
Cool.
It is a very, very big galaxy after all.
It is. Okay, so that's it for Akalon. What about? I see that apparently Medea has some issues with her sound. Medea, if you can hear this, and you've tried disconnecting and then reconnecting. Is there any way you can?
I think she's in the midst of doing exactly that.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Okay. Oh, there's some idea. There's some idea.
Apparently, for some reason, it didn't unmute when I tried to unmute it.
Okay. So when
weird.
you actually did trail that line of salt around your PC, it worked. Cool.
I asked my neighbor if I could sacrifice him to appease the gremlins. He said he weren't into the idea, but I could have one of his fish.
Oh, cool. So you sacrificed the fish then?
No,
Oh.
because I figured a fish wouldn't be enough, and then he said then maybe a cat because it needed to be something closer to the heart. Then I just left.
Fair. But at least we can hear you now, so that's good. Is there
The
anything?
unholy power has lost its grasp
Yeah.
on technology again.
Yeah, Cheens is he's slacking. Okay, is there anything Medea wants to do that day while you wait, or should we just skip to the action?
Well, they will have noticed her trying to walk around in new clothing, and it looks kind of like a dog that's been given boots.
Fair.
Well, Tim will have
Because she
complimented
probably
her.
managed to put on the overalls wrong.
But what did you say, Rasmus? Tim?
Tim will have told her that, and then still complimented her, because it's important to establish a good relationship with proper clothing.
But it's like trying to walk around in Sunday's best dress, and you've been told by your mother, now don't get it dirty, and of course the dress had to be white.
Oh.
You know, when you're being put in all new clothing and told do not get it dirty, that's sort of how she's walking.
Well, is there anything Tim wants to do?
Yes, there is.
Oh, also, Rasmus, I noticed you mentioning something in chat about where was it?
I've mentioned many
can't
things.
Find it. Something about sex.
Oh yes,
you're still
I know
very
it's a topic
unclear.
I never talk about, but
Never.
Trina to make her in a better mood.
Okay, so here's the thing about sex in the Imperium. It isn't clear cut. There isn't one single view on sex. It's a thing, definitely for the vast majority of the Emperor's citizens, Imperium citizens. It's really not a thing, but that's as much because they don't have the time for it.
Bonking someone is entirely a thing and possible.
Yep.
But
Yeah. There are many planets and many imperial cults where sex is not a thing. But what I'm trying to say is that if it's basically up to you how Tim sees it. I can't guarantee that Trina and him will be on the same page as regards sex.
Oh, I want to see them be on completely different pages.
he is from an Adeptus Mechanicus space
Yes.
station. My thought is that at least his baseline should be artificial insemination.
I have a pretty clear idea of how Tim is with that stuff. It's that he does sex, he doesn't do romance.
And that I think that makes sense considering where, like Joan says, where he's from. I don't think romance enters into it at all on the research station. It is Adeptus Mechanicus, and things are, as a result, rather mechanical.
Well, the vast majority of mechanic. I mean, let's face it. All the tech priests are Ken gelded anyway.
Yep.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
he's definitely, as I wrote in his opinion about her, orders are orders, but you have a particularly sadistic streak that makes taking them from you somewhat unpleasant. I wonder if there's a way to improve our relationship.
So basically,
Alright.
needs to hump her to make her better. Better
I
move.
mean, that is definitely a possibility. I don't think that's what he's going to start with trying, but
Okay, but
So basically, you want to do the humper dance with her.
I mean, it's really mostly maybe if I do that, she'll be less nasty. But that's not what he wants to do.
And that is when you find out that she has had rejuvenation treatment for the last 150 years, and she's old enough to be your great-great-great-grandmother.
Yes. I do
mean, I'll probably be that old sometime if I survive.
Yeah. I do mention in her bio that she served the Inquisitor for over a century, so yeah.
Yeah.
But
In any case.
I do imagine, though, that apart from the pleasure worlds, where sex is more than just a necessity to reproduce, it is very much a matter of procreation. That's how I see it anyway. It might differ from official canon, but
I actually think that's true, and I think part of the reason why this is the case, and one of the reasons why these pleasure worlds are extremely closely under surveillance, is because of this one word called Slanesh.
Yes. I absolutely imagine that the Inquisition are very. They're watching these pleasure worlds very closely.
Yes, and as I do recall having read something on this subject years ago, where at least in most parts of the Imperium, the ones who insist on doing the watching of the pleasure worlds are the most reactionary old farts, because at least, they are not going to be tempted as those young whippersnappers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was relevant to ask because, the more you know about a world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so okay.
So Tim had a few things he wanted to do.
Yeah, go.
Firstly, he wants to, since he knows they're going on a mission and he knows that his buddy was treated rather poorly the day before, he wants to do a kind of, okay, does everything still work like it should? Checking off himself. That includes, he did shooting range with his pistol yesterday, but he'll definitely also need to test with his rifles and his general physical condition.
Okay.
To see if there are any after effects of the whole.
Okay. So there aren't any after effects really. It does seem that as soon as the treatment ends, that's really it. The pain is there while the treatment lasts, but it ends as soon as the treatment ends, and there are no ill effects, no side effects at all. You're able to function just as you were before.
This pleases Tim.
Okay, I would imagine so.
After that, he will seek out Acalon.
Okay, well, he obviously finds him. Where does he find Acalon? Is Acalon still busy in the library?
Good question. Just checking I wasn't muted before I started speaking.
No.
Good. I want to say yes. Let's make it easy. Let's say yes, he is.
Okay, cool. That's where Tim finds him then.
He'll probably be. He'll actually probably be. Acalon will have just been heading to the Cogitator to start looking up some more of the buzzwords from his written notes.
Okay, and he started entreating the machine spirit.
Well, he was about to before he noticed. Greetings, Tim.
Hey there. I had a few questions, and Sister Francesca said that you would be the one to ask.
Well, I will answer you as best I can.
We were talking yesterday about reading, and since I haven't been taught how to read, I was wondering if we ever came across some sort of tainted text, if I would be just as tainted by just looking at the text as I would if I read it.
Out of character, is this something that I am able to tell him about?
You don't have any forbidden laws, do you?
No, as
Then
I've
no.
mentioned.
Then no, that's not. As far as you know, there's you aren't corrupted simply by reading. Well, no.
Hmm.
Well, I suppose he would know that there are such thing as forbidden texts.
Yeah, yes, that. Okay, yeah, that's true. There are forbidden texts, and there's a reason why they're forbidden.
Okay, so
because they corrupt.
what I'll say to him is this: I am not personally aware of any text that could corrupt you merely by seeing it, but there are books and treatises that are forbidden to the common citizen, and indeed even to minor acolytes of the Inquisition. I'm sure that they are forbidden for a reason. The knowledge contained within would be enough to turn a man from the Emperor's light or drive him mad.
That makes sense.
Now, though I do not for one moment suppose that forces of the great enemies we face are incapable of subtlety and of disguising such blasphemous tomes in simple ways, but from what I am able to understand, most of the time, if you see a book that has spikes or black metal bindings, or the wrapping looks like it's made from the skin of a human being, I would advise perhaps that you leave it be.
That is noted. I merely wanted to know if I could rely on my inability to understand the text when it came to protection. I didn't want to risk it.
I would say yes, but it is good that you are still cautious. Hold on to that.
In that case, I'll assume that I am indeed not protected at all.
Yes. Well, if nothing else, a solid and truthfully meant prayer can help in many good situations, I'm sure.
Oh, of course, I merely meant that I'm not protected by my inability to understand the text.
As I've said, from what I understand and from what I know, you should be fine.
He looks thoughtful and then says, "Could you explain how corruption works? I'd like to know my enemy, so to say."
Well,
I can just see him saying, this is a matter of the soul. You should go talk to Francesca.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Seeing poor Acolyte, or some poor Tim getting sent back and forth.
Yeah.
Feel free.
Matters of faith, I would normally advise that you speak to the sister about this. That being said, I do have some understanding of it due to my ward, the late Pontius Voltor. He instructed me at length on this matter.
Oh.
Corruption, heresy, these things are subtle. They will appear as innocuous. It is an enemy that all too often appears as a friend, that appears as fleeting or minor or harmless. And because of this, it is very easy for it to then create a seed of doubt or of what's the word? Twisted thinking. And from there, a seed can grow and grow and grow, and by the time one has become truly corrupt, you won't even realize it. And even if you do, it is far too late. Therefore, the best cure is prevention, and the best prevention for such things is constant vigilance.
That is good to know. I will keep that in mind when we are during our duty.
Yes, I grant you that our enemies so far have perhaps somewhat usefully been less subtle, creating rifts in the very fabric of realities of the warp, or riding abominable spheres of flesh and metal to make themselves obvious to all who see them that they are indeed anathema to all that is holy and good. But considering the mission we are about to undertake, where you and Medea will be required to walk among the populace to learn the subtle seeds of corruption here in Scintilla, you will have to be most careful.
Thank you, Akalon. I'll come back if I have more questions.
I'm glad to be of service, Tim.
Is there anything I can do for you?
I thank you for the offer, but nothing springs to mind. If something does, I will of course inform you immediately.
He nods and leaves. I shall see you later then.
Indeed. As I said, seek Sister Francesca if you have any more matters of faith you wish to be tutored in.
I will. Hopefully she won't send me back here then.
It would. A little exercise does everyone some good, Tim.
I know, you should join me.
Until someone knocks you out with poop.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so do you... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Akalon suppresses a snigger as he says that, and then shakes his head a little bit guiltily at himself, and then goes back to what he was doing.
Okay. And so does Tim then seek out the sister?
He didn't have any more questions of faith right now.
Okay.
He might, you know what? He might seek her out just to ask her, tell her what Akalon said, and then ask her opinion on the whole "how does corruption actually work" thing.
So where can Tim find the dear sister?
Probably looking for, unless she's actually found what she's looking for, of course. But other than that, probably looking for Medea.
Okay. So let's take that first then. Medea and Sister Francesca. Where can Sister Francesca find Medea? Oh, Sister Medea was trying out her clothes. So I imagine that Sister finds her somewhere in the halls somewhere.
No, she will find her in the utility room or something, where there are stands and other stuff, because she really needs to walk normally in these clothes. Otherwise, no one is buying it.
Okay, so she finds Medea.
Not look punky as she is actually trying to, climb this without looking like a total idiot.
Yep. Okay, so the sister finds Medea.
Yep. She waits for a moment until Medea notices that she's there. She probably
notices by falling down.
Yeah.
Her back, and then just saying, "How the hell does people walk around with this shit?"
With some difficulty, it seems.
Oh, hello.
Hey there. I just wanted to check in to make sure you're all right.
Medea flails and gets up a little clumsily, which doesn't usually suit her, but right now it just looks like a puppy in boots.
Are you managing?
Managing what?
Well, yesterday earlier when we were subjected to questioning for obvious reasons, most of us, the rest of us, didn't actually see what happened with you, because we were still being, strapped to the table and questioned and so on. And I just wanted to make sure you're all right. That's really it.
Honest?
Yeah?
I think you got the worst of it.
I think that I'm not sure if it was Achelon or if it was Tim that got the worst of it. I have heard of this kind of treatment from the Sisters Hospitaller. They're doctors, just before you ask, and I know from them that the best thing to do is to not fight it, and is to simply allow whoever is trying to learn something, to allow them to learn what it is they're looking for. It makes it faster. It doesn't make it less painful, but it makes it go by faster. So I imagine they had a harder time off it than I did. But thank you nonetheless. But the worry I really had was what was done to you after you were taken from the room.
Nothing horrible.
All right.
I think she basically did what she did to you guys, but manually.
Oh, okay. Well,
At least I think so.
well, if she scrutinized your mind, then that's what she did to the rest of us. How are you holding up in general, Medea? You've been a fish out of water since we started this whole thing, and frankly, I don't blame you. I don't pretend to understand the world you come from, but how are you doing now that it's been a little while longer?
I'm starting to understand that I knew nothing.
Maybe you knew nothing about this kind of life. That's not really the same thing, is it? I have to say, and I'm sincere when I say this, and then you can believe me if you want, but I do not particularly like it when people speak ill of you. I don't think it's the right thing to do. The Imperium consists of so many billions of people that it beggars the imagination. And it takes all manner of skills to survive under different conditions. You probably wouldn't last very long on a world like where Achelon comes from. On the other hand, I don't think he'd last 2 minutes where you come from. It's not the same thing as saying that you know nothing.
I probably worded it wrong, but I've never really needed big words.
Fair enough. Others have spoken ill of you, though, so I just wanted to make sure that it's been said.
If you're worried about that now, you should hear what people say in the Underhive. Medea says this with a very big grin.
I'm sure they have their own set of juicy expressions.
Well, let's just put it that way. If you are, in fact, being scolded the way I am in the Underhive, it means you're doing something right. You're surviving. The fact that I've annoyed someone enough to get the attention means I'm still some sort of a threat. That in itself isn't actually a bad thing.
Well, being a threat, I suppose, but wouldn't it be better to have friends and allies even in the Underhive?
Give me a second. I have 2 cats to neuter.
Haha.
That's one fixed. The other one I can't help, but it's in the little box.
All
And
right.
that's why we have bungee drums and whatnot in the background.
No, as she's saying, I'm. Wouldn't it be better to have allies as well, even in the Underhive? I don't pretend to understand that world, obviously, and as I said before, but being on your own always would make that kind of life even harder than if you were in a group, wouldn't it?
I'm pretty sure I already told you that I weren't alone.
You haven't actually said much. At least not to me. It's possible you've done to the others. I can't blame you for that.
I am pretty sure that I told them that she does have a family down there.
Actually, I think that you only mentioned that very recently. At least I remember that was after you had visited the kids.
Yeah.
That you brought that up.
They wanted
Yes.
to know what happened, where
Yes.
she went,
Yes, and that's
and
the
that she
first.
did have to sneak off.
Yes, that was the first time that that Francesca heard of it. So yeah. Nonetheless, you did say that most of those were children, even small children.
A few of them are.
Yeah. If it is as dangerous a place as I think it is, and I'm sure I can't even begin to imagine how it really is, it is a dangerous place to live, I imagine, and I imagine that there is quite a bit of violence. A toddler doesn't seem to be the most obvious person to carry around an autogun. Probably just because I don't.
Obviously didn't when I were a toddler down there. But you get smarter, you get dead. I'm trying to teach this particular group to do the same thing.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they have. I'm pretty sure that they have had a good teacher in that case. You've managed this far. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you're all right.
Thanks for your concern. But I'm okay.
And that
I think that they were a little confused. I felt no pain, but that's about it.
Probably.
and that is when Tim finds you two.
Hey.
Actually,
Hello.
Tim is back. Okay.
Yes. Hello.
Hey, am I interrupting?
No, we were actually just rounding off, really. So, yes.
I had a question,
Sure.
and I actually don't think it's a bad idea for Medea to hear as well.
Oh, by all means.
I spoke to Akalon
Yes.
on the nature of corruption,
Yes.
and then I figured you are the most pure person I know, so I would like your opinion on the matter.
Francesca looks a little fishy at that because that's the kind of compliment you're not really supposed to be used to getting, I guess. But she takes it anyway and says, "Well, I'll do my best." You want to know about corruption?
I asked him how it works.
Oh. Wow. Well, it can be. I suppose this is going to sound, I don't know, weird for at least for you, Medea, because you've had so little contact with the ecclesiarchy and the Church of the God Emperor, but we all have a soul. Someone like Someone like Achelon, for example, is alive specifically because his soul is strong enough to withstand corruption. Psychers who are not that strong, well, they don't live. And corruption is, I suppose the best way I can describe it is that your soul is a glowing, gleaming, beautiful thing. And somebody takes a bucket of tar and pours all over it. It doesn't stop the soul from being there, but it ruins it. It makes it and disgusting and smelly and so on. That's putting it in very plain terms, obviously. But corruption is a matter of slowly turning you from a being which is holy in the eyes of the God Emperor to something which stands against everything that humanity is all about. If you listen to, for example, to the sort of things that they are clearly or have been preaching in the streets in that district, in the Middle Hive that we visited. One of the street preachers down there, for example, was he was preaching. I heard it. He was preaching tolerance of mutants, and there are a few mutations that are considered stable. In the Imperium, we have such beings as Ogrins, for example. They are, or were, originally human beings, and then they mutated into what they are now, but they are a stable kind of mutation. Therefore, they are allowed. You find very, very, very rarely, you find people are born with wings, white wings. This is also considered holy, a sign of divine favor from the God Emperor. It is a reminder of one of his one of his favorite sons, a man named Sanguinius, who was a Primarch of the Space Marines. My own orders have Saint Celestine, who's also winged, although in her case they appeared under more mysterious circumstances. So it is, white wings are considered, on a person, are considered holy. But you could also see corruption, this insidious influence of evil. When it twists your soul, it will start to twist your body. And you may start to mutate. You could grow in, let's just take an extreme example. Suddenly one of your arms might twist and wither and be replaced by a tentacle. This would be, yes, it is hideous and evil and horrible, but such a mutation is a reflection of how twisted the soul of the person with the mutation is. This is why when you have a street preacher standing in the streets of this district and saying, we must tolerate mutants, what he is in fact saying is, we have to tolerate the kind of twisted evil souls that lead to this kind of thing. And that is why I put a shell in his head.
So, if mutations is diversions from a regular person,
yes,
then what am I?
You are a diversion from a regular person, but you are, by the Inquisitor, you are deemed non-dangerous. Your mutation is stable, which means that it is accepted by the Inquisition. I don't question the Inquisitor's wisdom in this case. I know that there are various illnesses that can do much the same thing, where you are inured to pain. So that is also a way for that to happen without it being an actual mutation. Strictly speaking, psychic powers are mutations. There are many organizations in the Empire who are vehemently opposed to allowing psychers to even continue to exist. The problem with this, of course, is that without psychers, we wouldn't be able to travel between the stars.
Well,
It is a strange situation where certain parts of the Imperium wants to preserve the Imperium by destroying the thing that allows the Imperium to remain the Imperium. It is quite strange.
but I can hereby come to the end that I've seen a lot of corruption then.
I imagine so. One of the ways, in fact, Medea, she says and looks directly at her, one thing I want to point out very, very strongly here. One of the most important ways in which people can avoid corruption and that kind of evil is through the Imperial Creed, is through belief in the God Emperor and through the preachings of the ecclesiarchy and so on. When I first met you, you had barely ever heard of these things, if at all. And yet, your mutation, what little there is stable. It is an accepted mutation by the Inquisition. Consequently, you have shown a great deal of resistance without even knowing what it was you were resisting, but you have had to show a great deal of resistance throughout your life in order for you to not be running around with 15 noses and 4 arms by now.
I don't know about 4 noses, but I've seen one with a horn instead of one.
That is an example. That is a twisted soul that has been corrupted by evil. And their body shows the outward signs of this kind of corruption.
But if it's like taking a bucket of tar and throwing over the soul, is there any kind of soap that can remove it?
No. There is nothing that can wash away that kind of corruption. It is deep within you. It is your soul. It's what makes you you, which has been twisted and corrupted. There is a proverb by one of the saints which says, "Beware the alien, the mutant, the heretic." And what that says, obviously, is that just as we should fear and hate and loathe the alien and the xenos because they are not human, and just as we should fear and hate and loathe the heretic because they stand against the Imperium, mutants are lumped into the same category. Now, I have seen ogrins. I have seen even a few ratlings, as they're called, very short human beings, who are also a stable mutation. They're very good shots and very hungry.
Sounds
So
like
these creatures are again, they're stable mutations, and this is part of the Imperial Creed and the Lex Imperialis, is that these people, these creatures, are accepted. I hope that helped explain a little, at least.
It does. I had a thought as I walked here, because as Akalon told me, his focus was very much on resisting the insidious whispers that would sneak in occasionally.
Yes.
And I imagine that is very relevant to him. So
Yes.
my thought was, is corruption to some degree dependent on the person to be corrupted?
Well, I suppose you can say so, in that we are all susceptible to different temptations. Some people might be tempted into reading forbidden texts because originally they might have had a very noble and admirable desire to increase their knowledge of important areas in the service of the Imperium, and then through bad luck or the evil machinations of someone else, they are suddenly sitting in front of a prescribed text that they are not supposed to be reading, and before you know it, these vile ideas have taken root in their minds. It can also be what we are supposed to go and do by the end of tomorrow. We're supposed to go and talk to, well, some of us more than others talk to the population in this Middle Hive district, and while you are now aware that this tower of bone and this hidden god and so on, that these are terrible and dreadful concepts, you are thereby prepared for it, but others might not have been if they had no knowledge of this, and somebody came to them wearing a priest's robes and cassock and saying, "This is what the God Emperor says," and then they are lying and spreading these horrible and evil thoughts. Most people would simply say, "Oh, right, okay," and then they would do this, not knowing that what they did was wrong and evil, but it is still wrong and evil.
Ignorance will not protect us.
Exactly. Ignorance is not an excuse.
I'm really starting to hate that word.
You know what? You have a point. Lack of knowledge is not an excuse.
But it does raise a lot of questions, though. If
Oh,
just half
please.
of those they've spoken to, like me, never heard anything about the Emperor, but heard it from them first.
Yes. Then, sorry, one more time. Hello?
If people like
Yes.
me,
Yes.
who've never heard anything about the real Emperor,
Yes.
heard it from them first.
Indeed. Then their entire perception is going to be twisted from the onset. And that is a tragedy in every way. But the acts that they would be undertaking would still be wrong.
Of course.
They might not wish for them to be wrong. They might not actively strive towards or labor towards doing something evil or wrong, but it would still be the case regardless. And therein lies the problem. I mean, for me, the first time I stood in a cathedral and looked up after my parents died, and the first time I stood in a cathedral after that and looked up at an image of the God Emperor, I had beside me an exceptionally skilled, very harsh, but an exceptionally skilled priest who taught me that the God Emperor is the master of mankind and someone to be feared, but also someone to be loved. And I spent years learning from him and from other sisters. It has made me who I am today, but it has taken years, and I don't expect it to be easy.
And with that, I think we will fade to black.
Yep.
And wrap
Yeah.
up this session of Hereticus. I think I'll give you all 250 XP for...
Oh, we're 50 XP off.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the session. We didn't get to dive in into the investigation, but next time.
But next time, Gadget.
Next time.
Next time.
Next time.
Yeah. So yeah, and to the listening and viewing audience, for those of you who actually view these recordings, we hope you enjoyed the session as well. And we'll be back with more Hereticus 14 days from now. Until then, bye.
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 Bye.